Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Gleacy.
And I'm Al.
And here at Forever ID, we want to connect, impact, and inspire thriving marriages. So today we're talking about leaving. That's right, I am out of here.
Leaving and cleaving, to be exact. Yes, we're not talking about leaving your spouse.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about leaving your parents.
Okay.
In a multitude of ways.
Okay.
We want to hit 3 points on how to leave, because when you do leave, we want you to leave in an honoring way. We don't want you just be like, deuces, roll out, slam the door. Now you got a fractured relationship with your parents because you may still need them for something.
Exactly.
But we want to just talk about how to leave again in an honoring way, so that you can properly cleave to your spouse. And if you don't know what I mean by cleave to your spouse, become one with your spouse. Just because the preacher says the vows and you exchange vows with your spouse and so forth, it does not mean that all of a sudden you jump that broom, you walk out of that church or wherever you get married at, and all of a sudden you won, everything clicks. Exactly. No, that there are steps that have to happen. And again, today we want to talk about how to leave and cleave. So the 3 things we are going to hit is how to set proper boundaries with your parents and your in-laws.
Okay, so how do you do that?
So that's one. We also want to talk about how to invite your in-laws and your parents into your marital conflict.
You supposed to do that?
Just kidding.
Oh.
How to keep your parents and your in-laws out of your marital conflict. You do not want them in there. They do not belong there.
Okay.
And lastly, we want to talk about how to seek out and find that mentor couple, because you cannot do life alone. You cannot do marriage alone. You cannot do marriage in isolation. You do not have all the answers.
Yeah.
Neither do your spouse, no matter how smart, bright, many degrees they may have. They don't have the answers either. And again, because you're going to be setting those boundaries with your in-laws and your parents, they are not your marriage mentors. They are not somebody, again, that you want to bring into the center of your marriage.
Okay.
So,
setting boundaries, what does that look like? I guess it first have to start with a conversation.
Absolutely. You definitely have to have that conversation with your parents. If you can have it before you say your I do's, that's great. But quite often that does not happen. So you definitely want to have that conversation immediately if you have not already. You want to have those boundaries where your parents understand that you are no longer going to be dependent on them emotionally, physically, because you're out of their home, and financially. They are not your Bank of America. They are not your PNC or whatever bank you belong to. They are not that for you. So you have to sit down and have those conversations. Have the conversation with your spouse first, so that you can come to an agreement on what those boundaries will be. I know, for example, like I mentioned financially, for us, we actually had to have a conversation. Okay, if you're doing financially well, we're not going to say that you just will never give your parents any financial help or anything like that. Or if you're not doing financially well, we're not going to say that you will. It's not a time where you have to come to an agreement and say, hey, we need to go ask mom, dad, or whatever for some support. But there needs to be a conversation between you that you eventually carry on to, again, your parents, your in-laws, and so forth. And again, for us, we had to set a dollar amount. Okay, this is a dollar amount that, without discussion, we can go ahead and lend. And quite frankly, most of us know if you've ever lend money, you might as well just say you gave because the expectation is you probably won't get it back. So again, we had to set an amount that we were comfortable lending to or giving to our parents or in-laws or whatever without having that discussion, and then an amount that if this was the ask, we need to have a discussion because it may impact us financially.
And what you're trying to do.
Yes, and what our financial goals are and what our financial vision is. And the point being that, like, the word says you're supposed to leave an inheritance for your children's children. So that means you are going forward, not backwards. And if you become a bank or whatever and a financial support system, then you cannot progress in your financial vision. and vice versa. You want to have an agreement that this is a threshold, or we will not go to our parents unless it's an emergency situation and so forth like that. Because again, you got to build together and you have to build forward. Again, we're not saying there's something wrong with taking a helping hand or support, or if your parents are also
in a position to do it.
Yes, and they are passing money down to their children and their children's children, then that's definitely a blessing. We're not saying don't take it or anything like that, but again, you have to set those parameters. Same thing relationship wise. You have to sit down and have a conversation with your parents, because the reality is, no matter what, it doesn't matter if a ring been put on it. In their eyes, you're still their baby. You're still their. If you're daddy's girl, you're still daddy's little girl. If you're mama's boy, then you're still probably mama's little boy in their eyes, and they are always going to see you that way. So you have to have a conversation to say that, look, like, I'm establishing something new. I'm trying to establish oneness with my spouse, and as a result, I will not be coming to you for X, Y, and Z. And my boundary is that you will not try to insert yourself into X, Y, and Z. We're not saying it's going to be an easy conversation, because again, if you have those relationships, if you've been with mom or dad or whatever for 20, 25 years, 30 years, whatever, they still going to see you, are going to see you in a certain way. So that conversation needs to be had, and those boundaries need to be established.
All right, so we're setting boundaries. And then the second one that we mentioned was never inviting them into your conflicts.
Absolutely. So again, when you set those boundaries, it's like you building up that wall there, and it's not a wall that's something negative, it's something that's positive, so that again, you can build your marriage properly. So again, like, you want to ensure that when you are having that marital conflict, and if you think you won't, you will, that you are not inviting them, and you're not hopping on the phone like, Mom, like, I don't know what's going on with her. She did X, Y, Z, or whatever. What do you think I should do? Mom may tell you what she think you should do, but that may not be in alignment with God's word. She may tell you just leave. She may tell you come back home. She may tell you a number of things. But the point is, once you move forward and you decide to forgive, Mom may still remember that conflict. And now you at Thanksgiving dinner, and Mom's staring your spouse down, your wife down, with the stink eye, and don't want her to eat nothing because of what you told her.
Don't let her make my plate.
Absolutely. And again, vice versa, it may be a situation where you ran to Dad, and Dad, like, he's tripping, like he just walked out, or he been out all night, and I don't know what to do, whatever. Your dad is always going to remember. He walked out that night, or whatever the situation may be. And again, when you reconcile, it does not mean that they've reconciled. And you don't want to invite that conflict in there. And again, because they may still see you as their baby, their little girl, their boy, or whatever, they may never have a heart of forgiveness there, or they may give advice based on you being their baby, their little girl, their little boy. And that advice, again, may not be godly. It may not be to reconcile or to build your marriage. It may be something that becomes destructive to your marriage.
So the people that you can go to is your mentors.
Absolutely.
People that you find that can that are in the same mindset as you, a couple that exhibits a godly marriage. You can find those, and those could be the people that you go to, because they're like a third party, and they can be mutual and kind of help you through things.
Now, so one of the things was mentioned is they can be mutual. So the only way they can be mutual is that if, again, you had that conversation ahead of time and said, hey, I really admire this couple. They are really doing this thing or that thing the way that I think that we should try to model. And so I would like to invite them as our mentor couple. It should be something that you agree to. It shouldn't be something that your wife go out and do alone. And now you guys are supposed to be involved with a couple that you absolutely don't feel comfortable speaking with or engaging with in that way, or you do the same, and now and again it becomes conflict. It becomes them picking a side versus them being that listening ear, that mutual third party, or so forth. And you can have more than one mentor couple. They can be at different walks of life. You may have an older couple. You may have one your age that is at the same point of life that
Right.
you are in. I know one of the things that we struggle with was finding that mentor couple. I recall when we were in our premarital counseling, and they told us, think of a couple that you would want to kind of help you navigate this season or help mentor you. And we just looked at each other, looked back at the preacher, and we had no
nothing.
answer.
Yeah.
We knew all of the couples that we did not want to model our
Yeah.
marriage after, but we had no clue of somebody that we looked to get marital advice to do things a godly way,
Right.
and not just their way.
Right.
Because if somebody's telling you how to do marriage based on what they did, then that's something that probably will set you up for failure. Because just because what they did worked for them does not mean it was in alignment with God's word.
Right.
So you want to find you a godly mentor couple that's going to give you the word and how they applied his word to their marriage and how it worked and how it can benefit you, not just their opinion. Now, again, there may be some things that if you go into them about vacation, they somebody that's just traveled the world, and you saying what's a good spot to check out. You may have a mentor couple that you just go to for travel advice or something like that. That's completely different. Go to that couple that probably not going to give you godly advice in traveling, but they are well traveled and they may give you good advice there. Or you having a baby and you want to know the best brands to buy an item or something from. Again, you may have a couple that can help you there. So again, you can have multiple mentor couples, but the point is to have them, because again, you cannot do marriage on an island. It's destined to fail if you just think that you can do it alone. Life is not meant to be done alone. God said it's not good for man to be alone, and that's not just about having your spouse. That's about having community. So again, we said that we struggle with finding that community, that mentor couple and so forth when we started. So one of the things that we actually had to do was open ourselves up to other couples and some that we didn't know. And fortunate for us, we were able to do that through our local church and
made a big difference.
Yes, through small groups. A part of our story, and you can always go to our IG page to check out our story, is that we were struggling. We went to marital counseling. Marital counseling helped reveal all of our issues.
Right.
And then we just sat there with a bag full of issues
and didn't know what to do with it.
And we had no clue what to do with it. And it wasn't until we got into community and got around other marriage couples and we started healthy
married couples.
And healthy marriage couples striving to get healthier and to get better, that we all of a sudden realized that we were not in this alone. There were other couples that experienced the same thing that we had, that maybe experienced things that we grew through, that were in a season that we had passed through, or they were ahead of us. And so now we finally had that community where we can go to other couples and talk to them and do life together with them. And again, we were able to do that through our local church. And it was a great thing for us because it helped us to heal wounds that, again, marriage counseling revealed, but did not help us to deal with. So we absolutely will shout out our church, Destiny Church, if you are in the Columbia area, if you are in the Baltimore area.
Soon to be PG.
Yes, soon to be PG. Definitely you can just hop online and check out your Destiny Church and get in a small group. They actually kick off February 1st. Again, a great way to get in marriage community and actually meet other couples that you can do life with and that you will no longer have to take that walk by yourself with.
So we're talking about friends and community. You could take it even a step further and talk about, like, sometimes you have to leave friends. Like when you get married, like you might not be able to hang around the same friends that you had before you got married. What do you think?
So again, like leaving Cleave may not just mean you leaving. It says that you leave your parents and you become one with your spouse, but yes, sometimes you are leaving behind friends as well. You know them, those single friends that don't believe in marriage, that every time there's a marriage issue going on, and if you went to them, they gave you horrible advice, probably to get you back into singleness instead of oneness with your spouse. So again, it may be a time where you have to leave behind certain friends as well, or compartmentalize that part of your life where they aren't invited into your marriage.
All right, guys. So let's recap. How do you leave and cleave? Number one,
Number one, you want to make sure you are setting those proper boundaries with your parents and your in-laws. Have that conversation.
Number two,
you want to make sure, again, that you are never invite your parents or your in-laws or anyone that you haven't agreed upon into your marital conflict.
And number
three is probably the most important. Get into community and find that godly mentor couple. 1, 2, or 3.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.